Shalom, shalom, Israel, shalom. It's Brother Raya. I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashima Mashiach, Malak Yahushua. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty brothers that go out there and labor on the highways and byways, making their body living sacrifice. In the rain, the tumults, the demons, the uprisings, the uproars, they're out there standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty brothers that are not out there as of yet, but they're building themselves up, reading, praying, fasting, doing everything they could do to put themselves in a position to shake the hand, to wake up the hopeful elect. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty aquaf in this thing that actually sincerely reverence their husbands, being teachers of good things to the children at home, being quiet, shamefaced, submissive, loving, steadfast, cooking, sewing, cleaning, doing all of the righteous acts for our foremothers on fire for the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty aquaf that are not married as of yet, but building themselves up, reading, praying, and fasting, doing everything they could do to magnify the Most High in the ministry. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty children in this thing, right? Zealous of good works, reading, praying, fasting, doing everything they could do to magnify the Most High, abstaining from all lust, concupiscence, and peer pressure, standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. And another strong shalom to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, reading, praying, fasting, right? Magnifying the Most High, his beloved son Yahweh Shah. This is going to be an in-depth breakdown on Amalek, man. See, a lot of the times, brothers may not understand the table of nations. They don't understand how to identify who Ham is through geography, etymology, and prophecy. They don't know about Japheth. They don't know about Shem and the descendants of Eber, how lines split from Arphaxad and Peleg, and diving into etymology, diving into history, and diving chiefly to identify your enemy is extremely important. How much more now in the last days with all witchcraft at a high level, sorceries at a high level, right? Evilness doctrines and all manner of evil was running to and fro upon the earth. These are the days where knowledge is increasing and brothers are diving into it and opening up these books. Right, I'm about to share my screen. Right, brothers, give me a strong con. Right, if you can see the screen. Right, I'm about to share my screen. And shalom to all of the mighty brothers and sisters, on the comment board. We're going to dive straight into it, right, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Let's go to the mighty book of Colossians. Let's go to Colossians chapter 1. It's the mighty book of Colossians chapter 1, and I want to start, right, at verse number 15. It says, who is the image of the invisible God, right, Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, the firstborn of every creature. For by him were all things created. See, Yahweh Shah, he created all things via the hand of the Heavenly Father, right, using him as an instrument and the holy angels. It says that are in heaven, that are in the earth, visible and invisible. So there are invisible things that are in the earth. You can't be a carnal man to only look at armory, weaponry, drones, military, warplanes, and vehicles that are the only threat upon this earth, man. You have spiritual wickedness in high places. You have witches, you have warlocks, you have necromancers, you got people that deal with astrology, you got people that deal with cosmetology, all of these different things, right? The sun, the moon, the stars, or you can read about that in the book of Ezekiel, right? And Isaiah, right? Chiefly the 47th chapter. It says invisible, right? Visible and invisible. So they are thrones, right? And principalities upon this earth that are invisible, right? Chiefly, I want to dive into the most wicked, right, creation of the Most High, which is Esau, but chiefly out of the line of Esau because everybody has branches of a tree. Us coming from the stock of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? You have also Ephraim, you have Manasseh, right? You have Naphtali, you have Benjamin, right? You have Judah, right? You have Levi, right? Out of Esau too, you have Portland, right? You have Russia. You have all of these variances of Esau, the Dutch, the British. We have to identify that chief root, that chief branch, because we have a chief branch, right? Out of us is Judah. Let me get that first real fast. Let's go to the mighty book of Psalm, chapter 72. The Lord said, in Judah is God known, right? This is Psalm chapter 72 and verse, so like I'm on 76. Psalm chapter 76 and verse 1. Right? And it reads, in Judah is God known. So that's not to say that the Lord isn't known in other tribes, but chiefly out of the root, you understand in the offspring that's going to excel above all the other tribes, you have Judah. The same with Esau, right? You have a chief root of Esau, which is Amalek, which we're going to dive into with the history, right? And etymology in the scriptures to identify, and really zone into this devil. So the Lord said you have invisible thrones. Let's go to the book of Proverbs. It's Proverbs, right, chapter 9. And I want to start at verse number 14, right? It says, for she sitteth at the door of her house, right? So at anything you have a door. A door is an opening, right? Just like Yahweh, he's known as the door, right? In the book of John, the 10th chapter. She sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city. This is talking about Esau, chiefly America. But America and Amalek, right, are in bed together, right? Chiefly when you go into the history of a place of refuge, right, politics, right, and or military alliances, right? Esau, which is one, have joined in alliance, have been in bed one to another with America, right, and what you would call Israel, this world. It says on a seat in the high places of the city to call passengers who go right on their ways, right? Chiefly, this is the lost sheep that are wandering through philosophies, doctrines, right, that are all over the place, man. Islam, Christianity. But what does she do? She calls passengers, man. See, you've been called by the Most High, but you also been called by this world. There are also invisible things chanting to you. Have sex, violence, love witchcraft, love idolatry, love iconoclasm, love all of the wickedness and the bells and the whistles, love the festivals, love these chief days, right? Love all of the glitz and the glamour of America. You're being called spiritually and you don't even know it, man. Every single time you go to work, you're seeing what? You're seeing billboards. You're hearing commercials. You're watching things and ads on social media. That's this world calling you to the beast, calling you to the image, calling you to sorcery, calling your mind to be twisted up and confused, right? It says, who is simple, let him turn in hither, right? And as for him that wanteth understanding, and you got to be careful for brothers that want understanding. There is no truth outside of this truth. There is no big, deep secrets of Egypt. There are no book of the dead. There's nothing outside of Yahweh Shem Yahushua that the Most High has given man. Because if you indulge and look, many things are going to be showed and men understand. You know what you're going to be showed? Secrets of this world that's not lawful to utter. You'll be shown things that are too high for them on the right-hand side, that are only given to those on the dark-hand side, man. Because all wisdom, let me get this quick precept before we dive into it. Let's go to James chapter 3. You have sensual, devilish wisdom of this world, right? This is the book of James chapter 3 and verse 15. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, right? Meaning what? It's natural. It's of the mind. It's of the flesh. It's sensual. It says sensual, devilish. So you have devilish wisdom, man. How to prolong your life, right? How to take a life, poisons, antidotes, medicine, formulas, right? All of these different things on the left-hand side are wisdom of this world. And if you indulge in it and you give your heart and your mind into it to not only, suffer it, right, but to indulge in it, the Lord will destroy you and you'll be given over, right, to this beast, this system, this mind. Let's go to the book of, get this quick precept. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. This is 1 Corinthians, right, chapter 2. And I want to start, this whole thing is fire. I want to start at verse 11. For what man knoweth the things of a man, saith the spirit, right, of man which is in him. Even so, the things of God knoweth no man, but the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world. So you have a such thing as a spirit of this world. You can know by the slang they talk, how they move, right? Everybody's always tapped in. When you go to work, you got certain people that click with you right away, right? Because they're in this world. On smoke break, they're smoking. They're talking about the newest fashion. Their mind is indulged on the NFL, or their mind is indulged on the NBA. They're in this world, meaning they're marching to the beat of Babylon's drum, Esau's pipes. You understand? And spiritual tabrets. But the spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given, right, to us of God, which things also we speak, not in words which man wisdom teacheth. Right. So you again linking up to James, the 3rd chapter, you have man's wisdom. See, and man's wisdom is decked up. It's in a robe, it's in a tuxedo, it's in a suit, it's in a doctor's office, right? It's in Harvard, Yale, right? All of these Ivy League schools. If this thing, really get to your mind, it'll pierce you. The Lord said, he that is, let me get this quick precept, right? And I want to come back to this, but I want to get this real fast in James, right? And for sake of time, I might quote some precepts so I don't pull too many of them, through the spirit. But nevertheless, no man have power over the spirit to retain the spirit. It's the book of James, chapter 1, verse 8. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So once your mind is pierced with the understanding of Esau, you'll start to double think, and it'll override the spirit of the Most High. There are certain things that the spirit teaches you that's impossible to learn of this world, that man can't fathom nor grasp to give you and to show you. So if you're double-minded in one thing, and that's not talking about whether, should I wear my orange shoes, my green shoes, my black shoes, or my white shoes, that's carnal. It's talking spiritual. Once you're rooted and planted, and you're double-minded in what the Lord did in the first place, to now uproot yourself to another way of life, understanding of philosophy, doctrinal way of teaching, you'll be unstable in everything else you learn. So the Lord said, which things also we speak, not in words which man wisdom teacheth, but which the Holy Ghost teacheth, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. Meaning when I get in an argument, you want to stand with a brother, I have to look at that spiritually. I can't say, well, he got fired, he having a bad day. Who the hell is he talking to? I have to look at the spiritual things that are invisible. That's what a spiritual man does. A spiritual man doesn't go to Esau's, doctors and different things like that when he's having marital problems, right? To get counsel from Esau. That's going to pollute your understanding and give you pointless, meaningless exercises. No, what a spiritual man is going to do is he's going to compare, meaning analyze with discretion, spiritual with spiritual. It says, but the natural man, who is the natural man? A brute beast, a man that thinks of his flesh, of his mind. He's thinking of what he's told, what he's given. He's not analyzing. He's not in the spirit. He doesn't pray. Receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. You have people in this truth that are spiritually discerned. They can't see the deepness and the depths of Satan. They think Satan is only when your car jam up, man, or you have marital problems, or when you got a slothful spirit on you. Satan is way deeper than what people give him. First and foremost, Satan doesn't go off. Satan's immortal. He does the commandments of the Heavenly Father. He does not sleep. He's running to and fro throughout the earth. He's given charge, you understand, by the Most High to afflict, kill, destroy, manipulate, overthrow the elements of the earth, right, to fulfill the Heavenly Father's will. And one of the depths is mind control, sorcery, violence, turmoil, and all points of craftiness. And there's not a more vessel fitted for Satan to dwell upon, which is unclean, where he never could get out, than Esau. It says, let me get back to this. This is Colossians chapter 1 and verse 16. Read it again from the top. For by him we are all things created that are in heaven and that are in the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones. So you have invisible thrones or dominions, right? Dominion, different places set up by the Most High, different thrones. In different thrones, you may have the capital. You understand, of Washington, D.C. That's a throne being set up. Don't be calling a throne is set up at the liquor store, right? A throne is where kings sit. Kings make decisions. You have politicians, judicial branches. You have different things that are manipulated and crafted out with a pen and policies, right, in different places where kings sit. Kings make decisions. Kings rule. You have different places set up where thrones reside, right? The Vatican, right? Ancient Rome, right? Different places. It says dominion principalities, right? Meaning spirits over regions or powers. You have powers of darkness, witches, warlocks, sorcerers. These things have power, man. Don't think that, oh, it's just a witch, man. A brother told me he had a dream, you know, and I'm only saying this because it's kind of going with the lesson, that a witch was throwing up spells on me. And he said, I seen, I had a dream about you, you was in the spirit, whatever case may be. And this is a witch. She was throwing up spells on you. And he told me to continue to pray and stay prayed up, and he told me that a while ago. And I still remember that. I'm like, damn, Lord willing, what the brother seen was, actually the case. And he was warning me, sometimes, dreams are vain, nevertheless, but there are certain things going on this earth, man. You have witches and warlocks throwing up spells upon people. Powers, all things were created by him and for him, right? I'm going to dive, straight into it, through the spirit of the Most High, right? Let's go to the mighty book, right, of Psalms. Let's go to Psalms chapter 83, right? This is the Psalms chapter 83, and I'm going to start. This whole thing is fire. We're going to start from the top. Psalm chapter 83 in verse number 1. Keep not thou silence, O Yahweh. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh. This is a song of the elect crying out, right, that are knowledgeable of their enemies. You have to be knowledgeable of your enemies and the forces set against you. That's going to up your prayer. If you're only praying for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, that's good, but that's not perfection. You want to pray to specific of what's going on in your life, man. See, a man that identifies his ankle is broken, a man that identifies his back hurts, a man that identifies he needs a job is a man that could specifically pray a lot stronger than a man that's having a cloud of, Lord, you know what I need, right? Or Lord, bless me. Take care of my household. Well, what's in your household? It's a lot of screws and different things and sheetrock. It's his foundation. It's a whole lot going on. So this is the elect praying that knows who their enemies are. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Right? Meaning what? See, there are ones that hate us upon this earth that lift up the head. The Lord said, well, we would be the tail and they would be the head. Right? It says they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. So the craftiness, as brothers know, setting up liquor stores, cigarettes, the Arabs and the gas stations, that's on a low level, which are also crafty devices, but you have spiritual wickedness in high places. A lot of the crafty devices that's going on, and I want to touch on this through history, was going on in the early 10th century, was going on early in the 1600s, the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s, on to where we're living in now, where Amalek has prevailed, grown, and spread his nasty roots like a green bay tree of the wicked upon this earth. We have to identify his craftiness, man. It doesn't just stop with him ruling over Hollywood or him ruling over the music industry, right? They have taken crafty counsel, right, against thy hidden ones. Now I want to dive into this real fast, right? So it says, I typed in famous Jewish families. So Jewish families have achieved global preeminence, right, through various fields. So they predominantly own and rule the earth, the Rothschilds. And everybody should know or have heard about this family, that was made, I guess famous or rich, I should say, early on, right, as their family grew in the knowledge and wealth of the banking system, known for its banking and financial empire, and perhaps the most well-known other noble families include the Saxons, right, who built the vast trading empire, right, and Saxon and Co., right, when you actually going into their branding and who they are. Rothschilds with their banking system, right? You have the Glengumian family, right? The Arcean family, the Della family, the Comnodal family. Now, these are all rich, right? Amalek, right? That have built, right? Different businesses, from Hollywood, right? To movies, to TV, right? To all throughout trade, right? I mean, from petroleum, right? To gas. I mean, every element where you could think to survive on this earth, Amalek has his hand in. And I want to dive into this real fast before we get into that. Right? It's the etymology, right? So you have, it says most scholars regard the origin of the term Amalek to be unknown, right? It's not unknown. It means to be a dweller of the valleys. And I want to dive into what that means. That's where Amalek dwells. That's where he came out for war. That's where he hid in between mountains, on a warlike aspect biblically. It says Amalek to be unknown, but in some rabbinical interpretations, right, it is etymologized as a people who lick blood. Now, who's known for licking blood, man? What does that mean on a spiritual level? He's the eagle. He's the head of the eagle, man. See, I mean, the head meaning the chief. Out of Esau's empire and who Esau is as a people, he is the top branch. He is the top head. He is the top stem. He's the top leaf. He is the top one out of all Esau, his thinking, his wickedness, his witchcraft, and the depths of Satan. So he's a people, that lick blood. What does this mean? I'm going to get this quick precept in the book of Matthew. Let's go to the book of Matthew. It's the mighty book of Matthew, right? Chapter 24. And I'm going to start at verse number 29. I'm going to start at verse 28, right? It says, for whatsoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. And where are carcasses? Carcasses are dead bodies. What more of a spiritual place, than Babylon for the carcasses to dwell, right? Where the children of Israel are. We're often called in the scriptures the valley of dry bones, man. Where nothing but carcasses, dead bodies, graveyard. The Lord said, wherever there's a people in a dead-like state of mind, don't know who they are, have no idea about anything going on, dead physically or spiritually, there the eagles will be gathered because they can manipulate them. They can control them. They can feed off of them. They can live off of their money, their entertainment, right? Their inventions. This is more deeper than, a physical eagle, sitting on high, looking about carcasses to dwell and eat upon. So eagles, what do? They look for dead bodies. They look for carcasses. They look for these different things. And I'm going to touch on this, right? The history of the Jews in Europe. Because again, you have from the Roman Empire, from the Western Roman Empire, they got chased out of Europe when you're going into the history of it. And they dwelt in Russia. They dwelt in Poland, right? They dwelt, in Palestine. They dwelt all throughout the earth in Western Rome, right? And they fled, you understand, when different things were going on that we're going to touch on. History of Jews, right, in Europe. I'm going to touch on this real quick. Jews have had significant presence in European cities and countries since the fall of the Roman Empire, right? The Western Roman Empire, 476. It says including Italy, right? Chief of Rome, Spain, Portugal, and France. Because when you're going into the history, a lot of Amalek, they came over to the United States before it was being really established, when war was going on, from the American-British War, right, to the Spanish Wars, to the French Revolutionary War. During around that time of the 1800s, they were fleeing over to this part of this land. You understand? What they were called the New World, where they were making settlements of their little, colonies. But they dwelt in Spain, Portugal, right? France, the Netherlands, Germany, and Poland, and Russia. In Spain and Portugal in the late 15th century, right, the monarchies forced Jews to either convert to Christianity or to leave, and they established offices, right, of the Inquisition to enforce Catholic Orthodox of the converted Jews. So, I mean, you have three variances of, I guess, the textile of what they would call their religions, right? And we're going to dive into that too. See this real fast. Got an Orthodox Jew, right? Orthodox Jews, right, are Jews who strictly adhere to traditional Jewish law. But when you go into history, they pushed out that Orthodox religion and understanding as they were coming into America. It says, and practice as derived from the Torah and Talmud, right? How many different types of Jews are there? Right, I touched on the three largest groups, right? Ashkenazi, right? The Sephardic and the Mizrahi Jews, right? Traditionally, right? Additionally, within these three ethnic groups, there are various religion demonstrations such as Orthodox, you have Reform Jews, and conservative, right? Reconstructionists, right? Meaning they're in the majority. They're not really saying whether they're Orthodox, they're Reform. They just blending in, saying that they're of that descendants. But these are the three, types, going into it. But going back to that history, it says forced Jews to either convert to Christianity or leave, and they established offices, right, of the Inquisition and forced Catholic Orthodox to convert Jews. These actions scattered Jewish life in Iberia and saw mass migration, right, of the suffix Jews to escape religious persecutions, right? Now, I mean, a lot of this history, or some of it rather, is spot on and correct. But like I said, you got to take the meat and spit out the bones a lot of the times with these articles. So paint them out to be the children of Israel. But a lot of these things did happen that forced migration, right? When you're actually going into it, it says Jews live in communities under continuous rabbi authority. In Europe, right? Jewish communities were largely self-governing, right? Autonomous under Christian rules. Right? I want to stop right here and dive down a little bit. It says toward, right, Jews was one of the most inclusive in Europe. The French Revolution, it was just going into that because they lived in French, remove legal restrictions on Jews, making them, right, full citizens. Napoleon, right, during the Napoleon Wars, right, you can read about this in Second Esdras, the 11th and 12th chapter, diving into the eagle, right, kind of diving into this thing. The first laws, right, you have Napoleon, right, implemented Jewish emancipation as its armies conquered much of Europe, right? I'm going to stop right here. It says European society and became more secular rather than remaining in cohesive Jewish communities, right? Pre-World War II, Jews' population of Europe is estimated to have been close to 9 million, right? Now, that aside, you have the two largest places right now where the Jews reside, which are America, I believe that's 7.3 million, and then you have Israel, which I believe is 7.1 million, where the large vast of the population, right, of Jews live. But before that, they occupied Europe. Jews population, Europe in 2010 was estimate 1.4 million, right? Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of Exodus. Let's go to the mighty book of Exodus. But before I get that, let's go to Numbers chapter 20, 24. Let's go to Numbers chapter 24, and I want to start, right, at verse number 18. And Egypt shall be a possession, right? Seir also, meaning the resident inhabitants of the Caucasus Mountains and their heritage, also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do violently. Let us prophesied in Obadiah 1 and 18, we're going to take them down. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city, right? Hamashiach. And when he looked on Amalek, now again, Amalek in the Greek, I'm going to get this real fast. It means dweller in a valley. And they got their name really from their craftiness in war, how they would come out in valleys and dwell. You can read about that in Judges, the 7th chapter. Let me get a quick precept on that. Let's go to Judges. So every nation, like you're named after your nation or your spirit. Let's go to the mighty book of Judges, chapter 7. It's the book of Judges, chapter 7. Where is that at? Bear with me. And 12. It says, and when the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east laid along the valley like grasshoppers for multitude, right? Because they weighed up, just like when we came out of Egypt, just like in Exodus, the 17th chapter. They're always laying in wait, right? In a valley like grasshoppers for multitude, and their camels were without number as the sand by the seaside for a multitude, right? So they were deep and they hid, right? And they inhabit that valley and that coast, right? So going back to it, a dweller in valley, right? It's really what that name means in the Hebrew. Now, when you read the book of Numbers, chapter 24 and 20, when he looked on Amalek, I mean, he's prophesying and he sees this nation of people. He took up this parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. What does it mean that he was the first of the nations? When you look up that word first in the Hebrew, it means chief. Now, this is that word first in the Hebrew. First, beginning, best, chief. So he's the chief, as the scripture said in the Torah, of all the nations. There is no other nation other than Israel that Amalek doesn't prevail in wickedness and in the eyes of the children of men. They're the first. They're the beginning. They're the choice part. That's spiritual, man. Right? So when you look at wickedness at a high level, right, you have righteousness and you have wickedness. Looking at them, they're known as the best, the chief, and the choice part of all the nations. Now, we know that's not talking about Israel. They don't prevail over us, neither are they hiding us in the spirit. So when he's saying this, and he said Amalek was the first of the nations, right? Meaning he was the choicest, the best, and he prevailed over all the other nations. But his latter end shall be that he perish forever. So when we're trying to identify Amalek, who he is today, how could he be talking about the so-called Jewish man? How can this really add up, with biblical prophecy? How can this add up with the scriptures? You have to really go about it. And his name, Amalek, isn't that mentioned that many times in the scriptures. You have in genealogy, a little bit in Judges, right? You have sprinkled in First, Samuel, whatever the case may be, a little bit here and there in Chronicles, but nevertheless, his name isn't that vast throughout the scriptures. So he's the first of all the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. Let's look at this real fast. You got the Rockefeller family, right? Chief of Edom, of Esau. This is the elect of Edom. It says an American industrious politic and banking family that owns one of the world's largest fortunes. So if you have money, you have power. It doesn't matter who writes the bills, who writes the laws. None of that has any significance to anything. It doesn't matter, about how good your team is, who owns the team. With money in this world comes power. It comes strength. It comes the decision to make moves. It says the fortune was made in American petroleum industry. Like I was going into earlier, they were going into the building up of petroleum during the late 19th and early 20th centuries by brothers. Now I want to touch on that and harp on that rather. Amalek's, coming out of that dark period, you understand, of migration, right? Early from the 10th century all the way to the 16th to the 17th, chiefly around the 17th, 18th, and 19th, they started to explode with all type of banking systems, explode with all type of inventions and building up markets, streets, right, and all type of industries for wealth around this time, right when America, was getting established. And how was it getting established? Obviously, off the backs of the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So you had free slaves to build up this economy, right? You had colonial places that they were establishing, right, when you're going into it, because they fled and came into America, right? Check this out. Jews escaped from Europe. During the Nazi era, many Jewish people fled Europe to escape persecutions and violence. This immigration began in 1933 with the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany, right? And intensified the Nazi policies, right, became more extreme. While some, right, were able to reach safe havens in other countries, many face significant obstacles, right? We're not dealing with your obstacles, right? The point is that they fled Europe, right? That's what we're harping on. That's what we call Europe the bottomless pit. Because out of Europe, the pit of hell spurled out the so-called Jewish people, showed out, all the chief wickedness of Esau, still in that land, right, from the Japhites, right? And when you really diving into that history, right, it gets deep, right, especially during the Dark Ages, right? Between 1820 and 1860, the United States experienced a shrug of reformed movements. You have something in history called reform movements, right? It's called the Reform Movement, right? The American Reform Movement between 1820 and 1860. And it's important to know history, man. Why? Because the Lord has things hidden. They have different things. The scriptures ain't going to just say Donald Trump's name, man. It's not going to say the US of A. You know what the scriptures say? Let's get Revelation chapter 17, man. So the more you know history and policies, the more you be able to identify his crafty devices that he hides in plain sight. This is the book of Revelation chapter 17 and 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the great, right, mother of harlots and the abomination of the earth, right? So it's called a mystery. These things, these governments, these things that the Heavenly Father has, they're in hidden. Everything's not given to you. The Lord said in the book of let me get this quick precept. Proverbs chapter 25. It says the secret of the Lord is with them that fear him. So there are secrets that the Heavenly Father has. So to understand secrets, a lot of the times you have to go into governments. You have to go into powers. That's what the Lord is dealing with. He's dealing with preeminence. He's dealing with powers, dominions, principalities. He's dealing with different mountains. So, I mean, when you understand, like I said, the origins of them settling their feet in the United States as they flee through migration, you dive into between 1820 and 1860, the United States experienced a shrug of reform movements addressing various social, right, issues. These movements were fueled by religious rivals, changing social attitudes and desire to improve America's society, meaning make it more acceptable, right, for all people, all nations, all religions, all understanding, which is creating a narrative of a cesspool of doctrines, a cesspool of, everybody's equal, a cesspool of that type of mentality. The Lord said, let me get this quick precept. Let's get the book of Revelation chapter 18. Revelation chapter 18 in verse right number 2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice. Yeah, we get on Israel. We always getting on Israel. When I say Israel, I mean talking about the fake Jews. But they're not just in Israel. A large amount of, let me prove that. A large amount of them are in the United States, man. Hidden in plain sight. So how can I word this? Jews live. right? The largest population of Jewish people live in Israel, with the United States following close behind. As of 2021, Israel is estimated to have around, right, 6.9 million Jews, while the US has about 5.7 million. So, I mean, when you really going into the numbers and the statistics, a large amount of these foul spirits that's in Babylon are chiefly ran by the elite of Amalek that resides in the United States, man. Let me go back to that. It says he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying Babylon is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils. What's a habitation? A dwelling. And the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Why does it say bird is hip talk? It's talking about eagles. It's talking about kinds and different creatures that inhabit the wilderness, that watch and seek after blood, that seek after carcasses, dead bodies, dead estate. Did not the Lord say that in the book of Revelation 11 chapter? It's Revelation chapter 11. And I want to get the classic in verse number 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of that great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. It's spiritually called Sodom because, I mean, on a deeper level, this place is going to be destroyed like Sodom, be destroyed like ancient Egypt. But there was no righteous man in Sodom. Man. No, not one, when Abraham tried to save him. In Egypt, also our Lord was crucified, where his name was crucified, his image was crucified. So as you're going into the reform period, right, I'm going to dive into a lot more of their migrations. The Jews have lived in Germany since the Roman times, with their earliest evidence of Jewish presence dating back to the 4th century CE. They likely migrated from Rome to Italy, with some possibility arriving as a result of forced deportation, right, of Judea. Right now, like I said, you got to take the meat, spit out the bones. But the point is this, is that they reside right in Germany, right? And they got taken out and pushed out during that Western Roman time, right? Since prior to the Balfour Declaration, Jewish people lived in various locations. Because when you're actually going into it, they're the nomads, right? Lord classified them as nomadic people. Let's go to the book of Genesis. Now you can say, Esau, is nomadic, which he is, but the chief of Esau, he's the true nomadic one. Let's go to the book of Genesis chapter 4. It's the book of Genesis chapter 4. And I'm going to start. This whole thing is fire. I want to start at 14. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth. From the face, right, shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. So they're a vagabond meaning a nomadic people, right? Right? Nomadic, a lifestyle where people have no permanent home and move from place to place, often seasonally, right, to find resources like food and grazing land for their animals, right? And that's exactly what they are. They were nomadic people after the spirit of Cain. So that migration and that location, various locations around the world, including Palestine, which was part of the Ottoman Empire, right? Those Arabs, right? Many also lived in Europe, right? And when you actually going into it, which was that British mandate, they told the people, right, if you choose to rock with us and get down with us, right, you don't have to be in the Ottoman Empire and their army to go against them. He said that to the rest of the Arabians. Within Palestinian, Jews, right, were a minority population, with the majority being Arab. Check this out. Jews began settling in Portland as early as the 10th century, with major migrations, including between the 12th and the 6th centuries. These migrations were driven, right, by push factors like persecution in the Western Europe and pull factors, right, like relative tolerance and the economic Salakia opportunities offered by Polish rulers. So they got pushed out. That's a very important part of history going into Amalek, right? Coming out, inhabiting the different parts that he's in today, which are truthfully through the declaration in Israel and by migrating during the time, right, of the French and the Revolutionary Wars coming to the United States. Let me see if we could pull that up. It says, while the prompt refers to French wars, is likely asking about the French and Indian War and conflict in North America rather than the wars in France. Right, Jewish individuals were present in the American colonies during this period, and some even right participated in the war effort. Right, one example. We're not going to read this whole thing, but they were here, right? So I mean, when you going into when the British they were fighting, over this land, and I did an in-depth breakdown on it on the Cold Cuts channel. I believe it was called American History, American War, something to that effect. Where I touched on the French, Indian Wars, the American Revolutionary War, the Spanish Wars, and how this land was fought over. You understand by war. You can read about that in Daniel the 7th chapter, right? Going into those wars. But let me read that real fast in Daniel. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7. Right, this is Daniel, right? Chapter 7. This whole thing is fire. Right, I'm going to start at, let's see where I want to start at. 7. After this, I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, right? The Roman Empire, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, right? The strongest of all the metals, and it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue, right, with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns, the common market. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom three Shalakia were the three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So that's going into fighting who's going to come into power after the Roman Empire. Right? You had the Eastern Roman Empire, the Roman Republic, the Western Roman Empire, and partial Rome, the period of kings, all the way to the end of the Roman Empire, 476, barbarian invasion, right? The Ottoman Empire destroyed, ravaged the relics, and everything is overtaken. Who's scrabbling up from the ruins to come into power? That little horn is talking about America. So you had these wars going on during this time, and that's how that's prophecy is linking up so close to the time we just left, to the time we're living in now. That's how these times is, they flying by. If you're not watching, they flying by. It says, and behold, in his horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things, right? The mouth speaking great things is talking about blasphemy. It's talking about witchcraft and sorcery. The same things is the same things John spoke about in Revelation, the 13th chapter. These are these great things. This is the book of Revelation, right? Chapter 13 and verse 6. And he opened his mouth and blasphemed against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, right? And them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given over him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Right? Talking about the Roman Empire. And all that dwell upon this earth, the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of the life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Right? Jumping down to verse 11. And behold, another beast coming out of the earth. So right from the Roman Empire, that's that little horn in Daniel, the 7th chapter. It's coming out of the earth. And he had two horns like a lamb and spake as a dragon. That's the craftiness, the hidden light of hope, love, peace, prosperity. All nations are one. But inwardly, he's full of deceit and ravenous. But now I want to touch on this. Now, it's a real reason why your so-called, your Jews, Amalek, they all go down to Israel, your president of the United States, to do these ceremonies and witchcraft. Right? There's no such thing as a wailing wall. The Wailing Wall is a wall in Israel, which is also known as the Western Wall. The Western Wall during the time of Herod that was set up, right, is strongly fortified, right? That's really only the remainings of Israel that you really have. That's behind that was the holiest of holies. That's why they come to this wall. But on a carnal level, again, you have spiritual wickedness in high places, spiritual things going on. Now, hopefully this doesn't offend anybody. Hopefully you can receive what I'm saying. But there are spirits in Israel right around that reason. Even though, it's right around the holiest where it resided, there are demons and devils and spirits going to and fro around this region, calling these people and these unclean spirits, right? Now, again, you have Donald Trump, right, wearing a hat, right? And really they wear this hat because it says it protects them, right? Their thoughts, and it gives them a constant reminder that there's somebody above them. There's no scriptures on that. That's why they wear that. I don't need a constant reminder that there's somebody above me. Right? The Most High should be in your heart and in your spirit and in your mind and your thoughts and your reins. So they come to this wall. And when they come to this wall, what they do is they write up notes, they write up prayers, and they write up visions, and they stick it in holes and crevices within the Western Wall. And that's how they pray and get their wishes answered from the Heavenly Father. There's no precepts on that. Let me get this quick precept. This is what the Lord said. Let me get this quick precept in Job. It's Job chapter 35 and verse 13. Surely Yahweh will not hear vanity, neither will the Almighty regard it. The Most High isn't regarding your prayers, your vain prayers that you throw up, which are really coded in deception and wickedness. Now, Trump, just like a lot of these elites, like, Obama, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, a lot of these men, they come up to this wall, they write these. Well, when the brothers can hear it, right? Give me a strong counter if brothers can hear it. I don't know if brothers can hear it or not. Brothers may not be able to hear it. If brothers can't hear it, brothers can speak up and we'll dive into it. Right? You have Bill Clinton, him going to the Western Wall, which they claim is the Wailing Wall, where they throw up prayers. That's a high level in Israel of a lot of sorcery. Sorceries are high level in Israel right now. When you go to the book of Zechariah, let me get this quick precept. It's prophecy that unclean spirits will dwell in Israel. So out of the chief of the earth, you have Israel and the United States, where the large amount of sorcery is, in a bottomless pit, which is Europe, which all uncleanness came out of, which is Esau, that he stole, which he inhabited and got built up to the latter times on the earth. Let's go to Zechariah chapter 13. Now, following, this is us in the second wilderness, following the 12th chapter. Zechariah chapter 13 and verse 1. And in that day, there shall be a fountain open to the house of David, right? Meaning the elect. A fountain is wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the Heavenly Father that was once prophesied that same fountain would be shut. The Lord said, let me get this quick precept in Second Esdras. Second Esdras, chapter 6. And I want to start at 24. At that time, shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein, and the springs of the fountains shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. So the Lord cut off the knowledge, he cut off the wisdom, he cut off the prophecy. Right before any judgment, the Heavenly Father always cuts off the kings, the nobles, truly the seers. So there's no vision for the people. And he cuts them completely off when judgment happens. So in a time of reformation, the Lord's going to open back up the fountain. When you go to Ezekiel chapter 7, and I'm going to start at verse, right? This whole thing is fire. 26. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. Right? This is when the Babylonians was coming in. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priests and the counsel from the ancients. Right before the Lord had destruction happen to Babylon, to Israel by Babylon, he has what? All of the visions, all of the water, all of the fountains. They cease to exist. So when you read Zechariah in the wilderness, is going to be opened back up to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and for uncleanness. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will cut off the names of the idols out of the land. What is the land? It's talking about Israel. That's where we're going to be taken and brought back to. It's where the kingdom is going to be established. You understand, and rooted, even though the kingdom is within us, right? It says, I will cut off the names of the idols out of the land. So there are idols in the land. There are things set up that are praised, that have to be knocked down, that have to be destroyed. It says, and they shall no more be remembered. And I also will cause the prophet and the unclean spirit to pass out of the land. Again, going back to my point, you have an unclean spirit residing and dwelling in these parts and regions in Israel that are drawing in the elites to this region. Now, Bill Clinton, wherever his origins are, obviously he's an Edomite. Wherever his origins are of the branch of the tree he derives from, right? Nevertheless, it's a ritual. It's a thing that they come up where they bring in their spirit and their soul tides and they're praying really unto a false god, an idol, a deity, and a demon as they go to this war. You can say, well, you're making that up. I don't believe that. Well, what the hell was Trump doing? Bowing his head, right? And kissing a wall. He flew all the way from America or wherever he resides at. He says he lives in America, all the way to Israel for that one reason, to show, right, the so-called Jew, right, that he respects their gods. That's really what it all boils down to. Because it gives them more power, more money. They back them more. And these elites that back in a lot of these wars. How can America afford the weaponry to send to Ukraine when America's in debt? Where's this money coming from? I believe the Rothschilds have over $500 trillion. Look at this. Why is this such a big deal? Because there was a demon set up that he's praying to. And only the elite know these things as spiritual men to give his allegiance. And they deck it up with camouflage, what sticking piece of papers in a morning wall. Look at this. Now, again, this is the morning wall, right, which is the western wall in Israel of Herod's remains at the temple. This is the biggest factor to the east going into it, man. They're praying, they're bowing. What's unclean spirit? Resorting to the spirit. All right, let me dive into this. Now, let me see if I can share my screen. Right, Salaki, bear with me. If I can share my screen, so I can do this thing. All right, Salaki, bear with me. Satan. Share my screen. If I could share it. Okay, bear with me. Lord willing, brothers are gonna be able to see it. I think this is what I want. Let's see, we got Chrome tabs. Salaki, bear with me. Lord willing, brothers can see the screen. Give me a strong con if brothers can see the screen.
Right. Jewish family and owning or ultra-wealthy financiers. What comes to your mind? The Rothschilds, right? Those keywords tie in perfectly with the legendary Ashkenazi Jew family.
So you have the Ashkenazi Jew family, the Rothschilds, again, the Southerners, we just dive into it. The Goldbergs. You have a lot of these elites. Again,
but when you add America to this description, it becomes a bit complicated, because while the Rothschilds have had a lot of influence on the world at large, they were mainly situated in Europe at the peak of their power. So in today's video, not only will I be telling you about...
And what does Europe have to do with America? Why is the elite in Europe and making their way to America? You can't tell me this isn't the bottomless pit. You can't tell me the Western Roman Empire, the Roman Empire isn't America all over again. It's spiritual because all of these creeping things and beasts, they all resort to their kind. That's scripture. Let me get this quick precept. Right? You may not be able to see the screen, but let me just get this quick precept in the book of Sirach. Right? This is the book of Sirach, chapter 13 and 16. All flesh consorteth to kind, meaning the penguins, they walk with the penguins. The sharks are with the sharks. All the unclean creatures, they're with the unclean creatures. The lions are with the lions. The zebras are with the zebras. All flesh is going to resort to his kind, and a man will cleave to his like. What fellowship have the wolf with the lamb? So the sinner with the ungodly. What agreement is there between the hyena and a dog? And what peace between the rich and the poor? As the wild ass is the lion's prey in the wilderness, so the rich eateth up the poor. So, I mean, like the Lord just said, all beasts are going to resort to their kind. That's the same,
Another Ashkenazi Jew ultra-wealthy family that owns the finance space in America. But I'll also be telling you about other Jewish families in America that have managed to exert so much influence over the lives of you and I over several generations. Goldman Sachs family.
Right, the Goldmans.
19th century Bavaria, amidst the lush landscapes and quaint villages, a story of ambition, friendship, and financial prowess took shape. It all began with a man named Marcus Goldman, whose journey ultimately led to the birth of a financial dynasty that shaped the very fabric. Goldman retired. He left the firm in the capable hands of his son, Henry Goldman, and son-in-law Samuel Sachs.
Which is going to Goldman Sachs, right? The branch and firm that was built up were rich Edomites, Amalek. Now, again, a brother may say, well, how do you know Amalek, it's of Esau? How do you know that, that's really saying what that's really saying? Let's go to First Chronicles, right? Let's go to it. Let's go to First Chronicles, right? Chapter 1. And we're going to start at verse, right, number 34. It's First Chronicles 1 and 34. And Abraham begot Isaac, the son of and Abraham begot Isaac, the sons of Isaac, Esau, and Israel. The sons of Esau, right, Eliphaz, which means my God is gold. Now, Eliphaz, he has sons, right? Who was Eliphaz's son? Amalek, right? The grandson of Esau. You got Gul, right? You got Joshua, Jamel, and Kokor. Salakia for the pronunciation. Now, out of Amalek, Salakia, out of Esau's descendants, he had Eliphaz, my God is gold. And out of my God is gold stems Amalek, right? The dweller of the valley, the one that licks up blood, the chief out of all the nations. That's what the Lord said, man, right? So, I mean, you could clearly see his stock and his descendants. And also one of the dukes, when you read the book of Genesis, the 36th chapter. The dukes are your chief ones, right? Your nobles. Going back to it.
In 1904, the next generation stepped in as Samuel's sons, Arthur and Paul, joined the firm fresh from their studies at Harvard University. The dynasty has continued to flourish. The second generation of the Goldman Sachs family was entrusted with preserving and expanding the legacy forged by Marcus Goldman. Over the next 3 decades, Henry's leadership and innovative thinking helped transform Goldman Sachs into a leading financial institution. His willingness to embrace calculated risks led the firm to explore new frontiers. He ventured into industrial financings,
So they have industrious finances, they have gas, they have petroleum. And once you control the banking system, I mean, really hear what I'm about to say. Once you control the money, you control the world. Because you could stop the cash flow of Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, Apple. What do you think Apple and these different agencies are holding their money, man? What do you think is being kept? It's kept in these banks. Who owns the banks? The Rockefellers. Who owns gas to have machinery to build up cities, right? Who enjoys the industrious, all the developments, right, of your Wall Streets and all these things being built up, right? Amalek. So if he wanted to flip a switch, he can literally cut off all that you know in America. And Esau knows that. Esau knows his beginnings, his early 1900s, how he came into power. Now, I mean, he's been in power, you know, from the foundation of the earth on the left-hand side, and sorcery and wickedness as our chief enemy, you know, all the way in the wilderness. You know, thus saith the Lord in Numbers, the 24th chapter, right through the hand of Caleb. But nevertheless, we're really going into it. If he wants to stop and cut off things, he can. So he has that much power on the left-hand side. The Lord said, the world is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth up the faces thereof, right? Paraphrasing greatly. So if the world is given into the hand of the wicked, you have to consider who the wicked is. Let's go to the book of Job real fast. Real fast. I don't want to keep pausing this, but nevertheless, we got to dive into these precepts. It's the book of Job, right? Chapter 5. And I want to start at verse number 3. I have seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I curse his habitation. So you can see him building up. You can see him taking root. The Lord said, they shall build, but I will throw down.
Pioneering the concept of using a company's earnings potential to attract long-term equity investments. This innovative approach led to the successful public offerings of iconic companies like Sears, Roebuck and Company, Underwood Typewriter Company, B.F. Goodrich and F.W. Woolworth. The Goldman Sachs legacy extended beyond Henry's generation. The third generation saw the family firmly entrenched in the American financial elite. These descendants, guided by the principles instilled by their forebears, continued to shape the destiny of Goldman Sachs and, by extension, the American financial landscape. The Goldman Sachs family story is a quintessential American narrative of resilience, innovation, and the pursuit of excellence. It is a testament to the enduring spirit of immigrant families who, against all odds, carved out their place in the fabric of America.
Yeah, I'm just scanning through this. It's hotels. I mean, every branch, entertainment that you could really think of or going to, they rule and they own and they're over top of, right? Let me get this real fast. Let me change the screen real fast and bear with me. Move this. I'm gonna share my screen. Balkashar, bear with me. Let me see. Try to share this real fast. Lord willing, brothers could see it.
Ask you two questions there about that. Tell me what is Yagoda and what happened with the Bolsheviks and the Christians?
Oh, you just casually killed 10 million Christians. It's incredible. People think that the greatest mass murderer was Adolf Hitler. And no, actually, if you want to talk about genocide, the fact that people in America don't know about what the Bolsheviks did to Christians, where did the idea of a concentration camp come from? The Bolsheviks. The reason why we're not allowed to learn about these people, we don't talk about Henryk Yagoda, is because he's a Jew. right? And so it conflicts with the narrative of Jewish people always being the victim in every single circumstance. So we're willing to push away Christian history. We don't talk about Christian history whatsoever because they have this bizarre focus, our classrooms, on training us to have this bizarre allegiance to Israel. And so to suit us, I feel that we are heavily propagandized in the classroom. And the reason why I feel that way is because we spend years talking about the Holocaust, only for me to learn when I'm out of school about a bigger Holocaust that took place at the exact same time. We were locking arms with Stalin. I mean, you read Alexander Solzhenitsyn talking about the gulags and who built those gulag systems, who created those gulag systems. The majority of them, he eventually wrote a book, were Jewish men. And of course, this has not become collective guilt. Doesn't mean all Jews are Bolsheviks and think this way. But the fact that I'm denied the right to talk about my history while you demand I talk about yours and you demand that I worship Israel doesn't fly with me. I'm just sick and tired of the subjugated Christian. I'm sick and tired of the tail in between your leg Christian that is like Israel first, and then I'll get to the New Testament. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm uncomfortable with it. And that was probably the first time in that entire interview that Piers shut up because he knows I'm right. It's utterly ridiculous to come to a Christian and say, have you used your platform to talk about Israel? Do you think that he would go to a Jewish person and say, have you used your platform to talk about Armenia? And if the answer is no, then why not? It's because what has happened is that it's not an equal system. No, it's not equality. They are treated, Israel as a country is treated with special interests. And I got to say about Israel, just looking at the history there, I mean, this is our greatest ally, as they say. That's the program. This is our greatest ally. I mean, with allies like that, who needs enemies? Right? In terms of the things that they have been involved in historically, no one watched.
And she going in. We're not going to hear this whole thing. But she going in. She going into the history. Right, she diving into she understands now. She understands obviously because she's in some politics, so she's trained to know these things and you know the origins of the nations and different things like that. She dived into the Bolsheviks. She really diving into these elites, man. Right, and this man is the chief enemy of Israel. Right, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Bear with me. Share my screen real fast. Right? And this man is the chief enemy of Israel. Right? Let's dive into the scriptures. Let's go to the mighty book of Exodus. This is Exodus chapter 17. Exodus chapter 17. And I want to start at verse number 8. It says, then came Amalek to fight, right? Fought with Israel and Ramalim. And Moses said unto Joshua, choose out men and go fight right with Amalek. See, when you go into etymology, let me see if I can pull that up real fast. Amalek Bible definition. See what come up. But it literally describes them as the chief enemy of Israel. Let's see if I can find that. Amalek Bible meaning. Let's see. Bible Hub. See if we can't get it to come up. Yeah, I just seen it through the spirit. Well, it says it right here in Bible Hub. Amalek represents, right, the Oxytopolakia enemy of God's people, right? So they're the enemy of God's, the chief enemy of God's people. So yeah, Esau, you know, said race it. But nevertheless, but out of Esau, that chief root, right, of Amalek being the chief one, right, that's known when you're going into, like I said, that etymology and those definitions as the chief enemy of Israel and the chief of all the nations. That's how we know through the spirit. And it doesn't take, 3 million precepts. It doesn't take sitting into a class and raising my hand for 7 semesters to see the precepts and how they prevailed, right? And how they prevail over us, snared and laid with traps for us to overthrow us. says, go and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. That's spiritual. See, the top of the hill, represents freedom, preeminence, right? Just like, we don't have to necessarily get it, but like in Judges, right? It says, so Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And Moses represents the law, Malachi 4:4, right? The law of Moses. So as he lifts up his hand, his right hand represents the prevailing of Israel. What does that mean, man? When Moses is lifted up, not necessarily Moses the person, but the law. Again, he represents the law. When Yahushua was on that mount, right, he had transfigured Moses and Elijah, which represents the law and the prophets. So when Moses' hand was lifted up, which is preeminent, right, to the law being lifted up and us keeping it as a nation, on top of the hill, meaning looking down and having preeminence and rulership, that's what we're going to do. We're going to prevail. That's Joshua 1:8, verse in chapter 9, right? It says, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. Again, your hand represents your strength, your power. Lord said, keep the law in your hand, right? In the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6, Deuteronomy chapter 11, right? It has to be in your hand, in your heart. The Lord said, make not man your strength, right? In the book of Jeremiah, right? Chapter 17:5. Paraphrase greatly for sake of time, right? But it says, but Moses' hand was heavy. And that's spiritual too, because it gets hard sometimes keeping the law. Not that the law is grievous and, you want to be a demon and you can't stop smoking and you can't stop lusting. But when I say sometimes it gets hard, meaning you're in this body, you're in this flesh. Sometimes it's going to hurt your heart and your soul that you couldn't wash before the sun went down because you was caught in traffic, right? You got a flat tire. You had to get emergency assistance and you had to do this and you had to do that. And you're trapped in these mortal bodies and it's hard to keep the law, man, to perfection. Not willingly committing witchcraft and wickedness. It says, but Moses' hand was heavy and he took a stone and put it under him and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands. What does Aaron and Hur represent? Why out of all people, Aaron and Hur? When you go to the book of Exodus, the 24th chapter, those were the men that were a charge over all Israel, right? Let me get this real fast. It's the book of Exodus, chapter 24 and verse 14, right? He says, I'm going to start at 13. And Moses rose up and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God. And he said unto the elders, tarry ye here for us. That's what he's saying to the elders. Until we come again unto you, and behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come unto them. So the elders were under Aaron and Hur. So it was Moses, Aaron, and Hur, and the elders. The 70, right? When you're going into it, numbers, right? So, I mean, they were men of high stature. And that's spiritual, man. As you keep this law, you need support from strong men. You need men to push you, man. Exhortate you, help you, encourage you, right? Especially when you're going against your chief demons and enemies, man. With all type of sorcery and demons and witchcraft they got in this world. See, anything could put a spirit on you from touch. A touch could put a spirit on you, man. Let somebody bump you. You're going to be upset. Let a woman's soft hands rub against your skin, right? That may put a spirit on you, man. Now you're interested in her. You're thinking about her. You're giggling, right? A touch could put a spirit on you. A smell could put a spirit on you, man. Go past a dump truck or a trash truck, right? You're holding your breath. Now you're in a bad mood. You smell perfume or frankincense. It puts delight upon you. You can smell things, a stench, right? A funk or whatever. And it deters and moves your mood, your senses. That's how sensitive we are to spirits. Because anything could overtake you at any given time, huh? Right? Touch, hearing things could put a spirit on you. From a moan to a groan to a cry. You understand? To laughter. You get somebody laughing in the next room and smile. What the hell is going on over there, man? What you got going on over there? You're receptive to your mood being changed at any given second. I say all this to say how much sorcery is around us, man, from our phones to things we look at, things we touch, things we, indulge in. It goes straight to our minds, which goes to our spirit, right? And it moves man. It puts sorcery upon man. And it's hard to keep the law sometimes. It says, and one on the other side and the other on the other side, meaning they held up his hand, one on this side, one on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. Now, this is manyfold because you need help in this truth, man. I've never seen a brother that done all it is to do on his own. I need help. You need help. There's been plenty of times where I've gotten help in matters. Because whether I was blind to a situation, I wasn't knowledgeable, I needed another witness. However you want to decorate it, code it, map it, look at it as you need help, man, especially with this truth. It says, and Joshua discomforted Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. So Joshua, chief warrior, man, was putting in that work. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. Why does this have to be written for a memorial in a book, man? Why there's so many prophecies that have not come into pass, chiefly about our enemies, man? When you look at prophecies, yeah, we woke up, boom, prophecy. Yeah, you got a spiritual wickedness in high places. You can look at a lot of prophecies, map them out. Okay, the first seal, the second seal, the third seal, the fourth seal. We inching into the fifth seal. Damn, we almost out of here. A lot of the law, wasn't fulfilled all the way, even though Yahushua came to fulfill the law, right, into perfection and what we could not keep. Not to fulfill everything. Because when he comes back, he's going to finish fulfilling this law. You have to blot out Amalek's name from under heaven. Saul didn't do it, right? Simeon didn't do it. When you read the book of, I believe that's First Chronicles, the 4th chapter, I could be mistaken, right? I rest to be corrected. Let me see this real fast. What is that, 4? Right, 4 and 43. The text describes that the descendants, well, we don't want to hear that. We want to read it. It says, and they smote the rest of the Amalekites that were escaped and dwelt right there unto this day. So Simeon didn't do it, right? Not that, they were weak or they couldn't, but this preeminence, this honor is given to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua and the elect, man. So as you really looking into Amalek, right? We'll go back to this precept. And their name being blotted out from under heaven, this has to come to pass. It's an honor. You have to write this for memorial, something to remember how deep this account was, how they withholded you, how they your chief enemy. It says, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Why is it so serious to the Most High? Because that's the Most High's chiefest enemy. Their name has to be utterly removed, right, from under heaven. Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of Deuteronomy. This is Deuteronomy, right? Chapter 25 and verse number 17. Remember what Amalek did unto thee. Now, who's saying this? The Most High God. When he says remember, that's a commandment. That's not optional. You have to replay in your mind what he did unto thee, right? By the way, when ye were come forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way. Now, when it says met thee by the way, that's spiritual. Yeah, it's physical, but you also have spiritual wickedness and sorcery. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel. What is that? Ezekiel, so I can bear with me. 21. Ezekiel chapter 21. And I want to start at verse number 21. For the king of Babylon stood at the parting of the way. The parting of a way is a path. You're always on a path every day, right? Proverbs, the 4th chapter, verse 14 all the way down. Every man's upon a path, right? The lamp is a law, right? Path to my feet, paraphrasing greatly. You're on a path following a shepherd, or you're on a path getting lost in this world. Babylon, right, is stood at the parting of the way, meaning at the fork of the road, at the head of the two ways to use divination, right? Let me get this real fast. So Babylon stands at the fork of the road, at the parting of the ways to use divination, man. It tell you to go this way. It tell you to indulge into this, to drink this, to get you off your path, to take your mind off of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, to control you, to manipulate you, overthrow you. You're on this path moving, and you're on a race, but he stands there to use divination. He made his arrows bright, right? He consulted with images. He looked to the liver, and looking into the liver is looking into sorcery. It's like a ball, like your wizards. They look into the liver, right? Let me see if I can pull that up. And like I said, I didn't have all of these things pulled up. I'm going off to the spirit, you know. If I could pull it up, I could pull it up. You know, if not, let me see what this says. So we're not gonna spend too much time on it. When you actually take the time and you dive into what that actually means, it's going into sorcery. When you look into a liver where you filtrate blood, you know, where life is, and you look inside of it and you divinate with deviousness and wickedness. All right, let me see if I can find this real fast. Right, this was another way of divination used amongst these heathens. So they would actually look to the liver. How would they look to the liver? They would open a body up. That's wickedness. You know, when people say you drinking baby blood and doing certain things, you actually are. You actually look to wickedness. Let me get that real fast in Wisdom of Solomon. The Lord said they have odious sacrifices. Yeah, that's talking about the Hamites, but all of these nations are one. They all move in the same wicked spirit of Satan. This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12, and verse number 3. For it was thy will to destroy by the hands of thy fathers both the old inhabitants of the Holy Land, right? Like the Lord did. He got them up out of the land. He destroyed them, right? The 7 nations. It says, whom thou hatest for doing most odious, right? Meaning wickedness, works of witchcraft and wicked sacrifices. Now, how do you do witchcraft? Witchcraft isn't always you take a stick, man. I take the rest of this incense and I just wave it back and forth like Harry Potter, man. Right? It gets deeper than that. You actually have to take devices. Like, look at us on the right-hand side. We have to do what? We have to do works to please the Heavenly Father. You can't just speak things, speak it and it'll come into existence. This isn't your life coach of the world. You have to pray. You have to labor. You got to be in the rain. You got to give offerings into the Heavenly Father spiritually. You got to give alms. It's so much work you got to do. You got to work on your marriage. You got to raise your children. We're doing sacrifices spiritually under the order of Melchizedek, which is well pleasing unto the Lord. These nations, not only do they pray through their ministers, you know, and their priests on the left-hand side, because every nation has a high priestess. Every nation has a priest where they do sacrifices for. Every sacrifice, right, is with blood. So odious. I want to look up that word real fast. Extreme unpleasant, repulsiveness, right? Revolting, right? Works of witchcraft and wicked sacrifices. It explains a little bit more what those odious works were. And also those merciless murders of children and devourers of man's flesh and feasts of blood. So you have blood in the parting of the way, right? Let me go back to this. Look into the liver. This was another way of divination used in these heathens. They determined for or against certain things according to the state of the liver of sacrifice animals. Yeah, that's just as men. You could let it say sacrifice animals if you want. Meaning they would take this bullock, right? Its liver that's still pulsating, moving, and twitching, and they would get their priests, their wicked ones on the left-hand side. They would pray the same way you look at Donald Trump, man, going to this wall. For the spiritual man, they're doing sacrifices on the left-hand side. For the spiritual man, they're offering up odious works of witchcraft. Now, again, everything isn't visual. Don't be sensual and visual and carnal and natural with every thought you think. Because guess what, man? The Lord said, let me get this quick precept. We'll come back to that one. Right? Let's get Mark, the 4th chapter. It's like the 7th chapter. It's what the Lord said. This is Mark chapter 4. And I'm going to start at verse number 21. I'm going to start at 20. And he said, that which cometh out of the man, that defileth the man, right? For within, out of the heart of men proceedeth evil thoughts. So when you look at certain people, you may say, well, they're not that bad. It's not that serious. You're looking on the outward. You're not looking on the spirit. You're not judging a tree by its fruits. You're judging a tree, pertaining off what you see at the moment. Everything has to manifest into fruit. That's what patience and analyzing, that's what Esau does to these different nations, like these different creatures. He'll sit there and he'll watch a lion. He'll watch him in the winter. He'll watch him in the summer. He'll watch him when he's mating. He's watching when he's growing up into an adulthood. And he has diligent inquisition on his behavior, his mood, his thoughts. I was looking at something the other day. I forgot what it was. And Esau was analyzing a bull. How when they blow, it was like really snot. And they was clearing their body from snot so that they could take deep breaths, that they could truck and kill, man. Like in those movies, it'd be like air that's being blown out, the bull, and they're really upset and they're really angry or whatever the case may be. In the cartoons, they're saying they're clearing out their digestive system so that they could breathe in stronger for more strides. They was really getting in depth into these animals. I'm like, damn, Esau really be studying these beasts, man. Esau really study. And you got to take that on the right-hand side. I mean, you have to study, man. You have to know when somebody's spirit is off by their fruit. Can't be quick to give man their like the Lord said, paraphrasing extremely greatly, you have to hear a man speak, before you say anything good about him. Right? It says, for within, out of the heart of men proceedeth evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, and evil eye, blaspheming, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile man. Those are the things chiefly that defile man. So, like again, when you're looking into it, whether mutated or complete, sound or unsound, or from its color or from marks appearing in particular places of it, and this by rules laid down among them. So they had the divinations of these heathen. Going back to the precept, right? Said they looked to the liver. At his right hand was the divination for Jerusalem, to appoint captains to open the mouth in the slaughter, to lift up the voice with shouting, to appoint battering rams against the gates, and to cast them out to build a fort. All of this was seen by what? By divination. You can't tell me divination can't show you things, man. That's why they rub that Hollywood, which is actually Hollywood, and they rub it and they get, they channel that spirit. Now you channel the spirit when they went to Israel to kiss that wall. They channel these different spirits, right? It says, and it shall like it be unto them as a false divination in their sight. It says to them, they have sworn oaths, but he will call to remembrance the iniquity that they may be taken. Said they sworn oaths, man. What is oaths made by? By swearing. When you swear to a deity, a god. You make an oath by blood. You make some type of contract. The Lord told you about striking hands. So these nations, the way they get down is all through sorcery. Every act and mentality they bring forth is through sorcery, a high level of sorcery. And again, you got to be a spiritual man to look at these accounts. Right? Let's get the book of Job. Let me get this quick precept. It's Job chapter 5. Right? And I'm going to start at verse number 12. It says, he disappointed the devices of the crafty. He disappointed the devices of the crafty. Again, you have chief counsels, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. Your enterprise are your actions, your works that you're trying to bring forth by these crafty devices. Again, that's Psalms 83. Psalms 83, it's not just talking about the UN meetings. Like Psalms 83 is one of the deepest chapters, I would say, in the whole scriptures, man. On a level to see how all these nations, they collectively hate you. They collectively are one accord to devour you by everything that they could get their hands on to use to destroy you, man. That's how strong we are, man. It says he taketh the wise in their own craftiness, right? And the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. See, counsel, again, in the scriptures, they meet with darkness in the daytime and grope in the noonday as in the night, right? The Lord said they meet with darkness in the daytime. Again, this is what you see right here spiritually. When I see this, I see that precept. You can't just say, here's Bill. What is Bill Clinton doing with that hat on, man? Oh my God, what is he, a Jew now? What is Bill Clinton doing? Everything has to be looked at spiritually. A large attraction of people, the events, all these are a hidden agenda, right? It says, and grope in the noonday as in the night, right? It says, but he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty, right? See if I had, any more links I wanted to dive into, through the spirit, right? Let me get these two closing precepts. And if any brothers have any questions going into Amalek, I would advise you to answer them on the next Q&A I do, because Most High willing, I'll probably do a Q&A on the Sabbath day, for be the Most High's mercy and will. The spirit may change if something in the earth happens, or whatever the case may be. But through the spirit, Most High willing, I'm gonna do a Q&A. So any prophecy questions, any false doctrines, or anything that needs to be addressed in any type of level, brothers will address it through the spirit and power of the Most High God, Yahweh, and his beloved son, Yahweh Shah. But let me get these closing precepts, right? I want to get a Song of Solomon, chapter 5. Now, this is Song of Solomon, chapter 5, right? And I'm going to start at verse. This whole thing is fire, right? I'm going to start at, let's see what I want. Salaki. Let me get chapter 6. That's what I want. It's Song of Solomon, chapter 6. And I want to start at verse. This is a beautiful chapter. It's only 13. It's beautiful. Let's read it. Let's read the whole thing. Whether is thy beloved gone, O thou fairest among women? Whether is thy beloved turned aside, that we may seek him with thee? Or whether is thy beloved gone, man? Where's the Most High at, man? Where's beloved son Yahweh Shah? Where can I find this truth? Where's the knowledge of the Heavenly Father? My beloved is gone down into his garden. Well, you're seeking the Lord, trying to figure where he gone. He's going into his garden. Who is the garden? The nation of Israel. He's looking, he's searching to the bed of spices. Why to the bed of spices? What does it mean, the bed of spices? To the elect. That's the bed of spices. How do you know that? Let's go to the book of Song of Solomon, right? Chapter 4. Song of Solomon, chapter 4, in verse, right? 10. How fair is thy love, my sister, my spouse? How much better is thy love than wine, and the smell of thy ointments than all spices? Thy lips, O my spouse, drop as a honeycomb, honey like milk are under thy tongue, and thy smell of thy garments is like the smell of Lebanon, right? A garden, the same garden we read about, enclosed. Right, meaning you got to be invited to this truth, man. You can't creep in, break in, sniffing, looking, creeping, crevicing, unawares, or the Most High will get you out of here. It says, my sister, my spouse, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Meaning the Heavenly Father has to open up this knowledge for you to be able to receive it. Somebody could break it down, make it baby food and feed you. But guess what? If it's not of the Heavenly Father, you're not going to get it, man. There's certain things that are enclosed that aren't going to be open, right? When you're actually going into it. Spiritual things. And I don't want to turn this into an in-depth breakdown, but let's go to, let's get a quick precept on that. Let's go to the book of Genesis. Let's go to Genesis chapter 29. This is Genesis chapter 29, and I'm going to start at verse 2. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, right? So Jacob seeing a well that's in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. 3 is the number of completion. So we seen these sheep lying by this well. They couldn't get to it. For out of that well, they watered the flocks. So the flocks couldn't get to the well. They were sitting up there, whether they were despair, distress, thirsty. It says, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. So those sheep were unable to get to the waters because he had a great stone upon it. And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the sheep. So the sheep can't drink. The sheep can't get watered unless the Most High moves. You understand that obstacle? Whether that's Christianity, Roman Catholicism, sorcery, fornication, cigarettes, demons, lust, weed, idolatry, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in his place. The Most High can shut up that fountain, or he can open up that fountain. It says, thy plants, the plants are men in the garden, because the garden is the nation. Thy plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruits, camphire, spikenard. So the men in this garden are giving off a pleasant odor. They're reading, they're praying, they're giving alms. They're diving in and hating their oppressor. Yes, that's a heavenly odor, man. All the effeminate activity in Israel got to cease, man, to appease your oppressor, not to get blocked, distorted, or on strike on YouTube, man. Because YouTube not gonna last forever, man. I'll be damned if a .com will limit the words of the Most High. It says, spikenard and saffron, cumius and cinnamon, with all trees of frankincense and myrrh and aloes, with all chief spices. And it says spices, it said what? Chief spices. So when it said he gone down to the bed of spices, the Lord's visiting, uplifting, pushing, and watering the elect. You brown flowers, you whittling thistles, right? You bribers, all you men that are smoking weed, doing abominable things in the dark, giving heed to false doctrines and demons, you're giving off a stench. It says to feed in the gardens, to gather lilies. Now the lilies are the perfected state of the elect in the time of the Lord. It says, I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. It's the love Yahweh Shem Yahushua has for us. It says he feedeth among the lilies, right? And who are the lilies? The lilies are the elect. Again, this is not written to all Israel, contrary to popular belief. The Lord died for all Israel, but this book is not written for all Israel. If it was written to all Israel, then the Lord wouldn't have stopped the minds and the ears that men couldn't receive this truth. Matthew the 13th chapter, Isaiah the 6th chapter, Isaiah the 29th chapter. If this truth was for everybody in Israel, no, I wouldn't be here breaking this down, because a lot of people would already know these things. So a lot of people just coming into the truth. A lot of people that are stumbling across videos to scoff. It's not supping with their spirit. What is the like the lily? The Lord said, I am the rose of Sharon, right? And like you get Sharon, that beautiful, barren land in that field, and the lily of the valleys. As the lily among thorns, so is my love among the daughters. So the lily is among thorns. Who is my love? The love is us. We're likened unto a woman. We're among the daughters because you have many daughters. You have the harlots. Babylon is known as a woman. You have many women and daughters of the land, right? You read about that in Genesis chapter 34 on a physical level. Dana went out to see the daughters of the land. You understand? So this is my love among the daughters, right? So, I mean, when you actually going into it, the lily is among thorns. We're around all of these wicked doctrines, philosophies, but chiefly it's talking about we live amongst the nations. We're entrapped and entwined to live next door to Africans, to go to the store and see Amalek above it. We're in this garden, but nevertheless, we're not free. We can't grow to our potential, right? It says, let's go to back to it. Verse 4. It says, thou art beautiful, O my love, as Tyre, right? Comely as Jerusalem, terrible as an army with banners. So we're beautiful, meaning we're comely, right? We're terrible too. So we're beautiful as far as our countenance. Talking about our spirit, because the Lord doesn't see how man sees. Man sees the outward, Most High sees the inward, right? 1 Samuel 16:7, when he looked upon David, right? The smallest and the youngest of them all. So when it says we're beautiful, that's our spirit. Our love we have and our perfection and sincerity. We're terrible like an army with banners, because every army, they have a banner, meaning they're marching into town. You have ancient messengers, ancient bullhorns with stamps, right? You have these ancient things, it's ancient talk, right? Right? It says, turn away thine eyes from me, for they have overcome me. Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Gilead. So it says, turn away thine eyes from me, for they have overcome me. Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Gilead, right? What is this talking about? When you go to Song of Solomon, and a lot of Song of Solomon breaks down within Song of Solomon, right? The Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 1. Behold, thou art fair, right? Meaning beautiful, my love. Behold, thou art fair, thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks, right? Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Gilead, right? So it's beautiful, it's strong, it's voluptuous, right? That's really what it's going into. Thy teeth are as the flock of sheep, right? Meaning it's white, which go from the washing, right? Meaning purity when you smile, your countenance, whereof everyone beareth twins, right? Meaning it's healthy, right? That's what it means, it beareth twins. It says the same thing as you read all the way down in verse 2. Thy teeth is saying the same thing. Thy teeth like a flock of sheep that are even shorn. And this is talking about shorn, meaning shaven, right? To perfection, right? You're groomed, you're beautiful. It says, which come from the washing, whereof everyone beareth twins, and none is barren among them. So like I said, the twins represents the fruitfulness. Being barren, meaning you're not able to bring forth life and fruit. You understand, by your womb. There is not one barren among them. Check this out. It says, as a piece of pomegranate are thy temples within thy locks. Your locks is talking about your hair. It's not necessarily saying you have dreadlocks, because a lock is a curl in the Hebrew. It's really what it's going into, a lock of hair. That's why Jake had locks. Ezekiel had locks. Samson had locks. A lock is a curl. Not to say man can't have, what do they call them, braids, or man can't have, locks. Not at all. But chiefly, when man has waves, he has locks and curls that group together. It says there are 80 queens. That's going into all of these nations. It's not talking about Solomon's concubines and his wives. There are 80 queens. See, your queens are your high ones of this earth, right? You have Babylon, a nation of Babylon. You have Russia, or you have China. These will be your queens on a high level of the earth. Your ones that sit upon these chairs, right in these seats, that make orders and executive decisions. And 80 concubines, lesser nations. Ukraine would be a lesser nation, man. Right? Japan would be a lesser nation. It's like a lesser nation. You have these other nations that are lesser, that don't have the same power and strength that these queens do, which are whores. It says, and virgins without number. Just because it says virgin doesn't mean that they're upright and pure. See, a virgin, let me get this quick precept. It's Revelation 18:7. How much, right, shall she glorify herself and live deliciously after the riches and wickedness? So much torment, right, and sorrow give her, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen. So who is this queen in this parable? It's talking about the chief nations of the earth. I sit a queen. Again, sit. Sit is going into what? Right? You have invisible principalities, invisible thrones set. Again, you have thrones in America. And yes, Amalek is sitting in the seat, man. Esau is in the seat. He runs America. It says, I sit a queen and am no widow, right? And shall see no sorrow. Why she say I sit a queen, right? I shall see no sorrow, right? Because she hasn't been bombed yet. She hasn't been devoured yet. She hasn't been, brothers know what I'm talking about when it says a virgin without number. There are many nations that have not been bombed, right? There are many nations that, have a good name amongst the heathens. It says, my dove, my undefiled is but one. We're the one that's undefiled. Or to be truly undefiled, right, is to be washed and to be repentant of this world. It says she is the only one of her mother, right? Talking about wisdom. It says she is the choice one of her that bared her, right? Wisdom, right? Sirach chapter 15 and 1 all the way down. The daughters saw her and blessed her. So our last end of these nations, they're going to bless us. They're going to bow down unto us. They're going to finally announce, understand, and proclaim that we are the children of Israel. And for all you jakes that get upset because they're bowing down right now, right? You gotta get your spirit together, man. Right? Let me get this quick precept. In Isaiah chapter 33. Let me get this quick precept. Right? It's Isaiah, right? Chapter 33. And I want to start at verse number 17. Thine eyes shall see the king in his beauty. They shall behold the land that is far off, man. So, I mean, their eyes is going to see Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Their eyes are going to profess this truth. They're going to bow down. Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. They're going to see us and bow down at the strangeness of our salvation. Yea, the queens and the concubines, and they praised her. They're going to bow down, right? Now, obviously, this is literal, but it's much more spiritually. And then they're going to yield to understand we're the chief ones of the earth. Like the Lord said, they were the first of the nations, but their latter end is that they should perish forever. The Lord said the first shall be last. The Lord said in the book of Job, right, the 8th chapter, let me get this quick precept. This is Job chapter 8 and verse number 7. Though thy beginning was small, yet thy latter end should be greatly increased. See, our latter end is going to be increased, and our beginning was small, right? It says, who is she that looketh forth as the morning, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, right? And terrible as an army with banners. right? Who is this that looketh forth as the morning, right? You're looking forth as the morning, right? When you read the book of, let me get this quick precept. You watch for the morning, right? That's what it's saying. You look for the morning. The morning comes in. When you read Psalm chapter 130, right? And it's a beautiful thing, these parables, man. It's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful, right? It's the book of Psalms, chapter 130 and 6. My soul waiteth for the Lord more than they that watch for the morning. You wait for the morning. You anticipate the morning. The morning comes in. I say more than they that watch for the morning. You have to watch for the morning coming in and wait. Who is this that looketh forth as the morning? Fair, right? Meaning beautiful as the moon. The moon is classified as a woman. The sun as a man. The moon is a her. The sun is a him. The sun will kill you, man. It killed Judah's husband, Manasseh, right? In the barley harvest, right? When you read the book of Judith, the sun have smitten many in the field, man. But the moon is soft, sweet, it's kind. It says, and terrible as an army with banners. We just broke that down, right? Even though we're beautiful, right, and comely, we're still strong and valiant men. I went down into the garden of nuts. Now, nuts is a chief thing. When you read the book of Genesis 43 and verse, was that 11? When they went down going into Egypt, right? When you actually read this account, it was a famine during this time. It says, and their father Israel said unto them, if it must be now so, do this and take the best fruits of the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, little balm, a little honey, spices, and all these are spiritual things, even though this is physical. Myrrh, nuts, and almonds. So spices are spiritual, honey is spiritual, mirth is spiritual, but also nuts and almonds. That's your protein and your strength. So when it says I went down into the garden of nuts, man, to see the fruit, right, of the valley, to see whether the vine flourish. Now, the vine, when you really going into it, that's talking about Yahushua, not that Yahushua is flourishing, but who's eating and growing off of Yahushua? Who's strengthened in my son? Do I want to see this vine flourish? Now, on another fold, you got a vine too that can represent Judah, right? When you go to the book of, was that Jeremiah? All this is off the top. I didn't write any of this down. Bear with me. I believe that was at Jeremiah chapter. Just quick precept. Turn this up. Yeah. I really want to get this. You could dive into Jeremiah chapter 3. You know, let me get this quick precept. It's Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 6. The Lord said unto me, in the days of Josiah the king, hast thou seen the wicked which backsliding Israel have done? She have gone up upon every mountain, right, nation, right, spiritually, right, and under every green tree, and there she have played the harlot. So where's she playing the harlot? Under every green tree, right? So she getting down with her whoredom, right, and her wickedness. So I mean, she getting down with these other nations, just like Adam covering himself with his shame through his nakedness, right? The true vine is Yahushua. That's John, right? Get this quick precept. Chapter 15. In verse number 1. I am the true vine, and my father the husband. Right? He oversees the vineyard. And the pomegranates budded, meaning the elect. Right? He's waiting for you to be on fire. He's waiting for you to be sealed. He's waiting for you to fulfill prophecy. Because he's not going to come back until 144,000 is sealed. That's why the Father's always looking in his garden, always seeing what the hell is going on. Okay, he fell out. Gotta take him off. He fell out. She fell out. She fell out. He came in. He came in. He's diligently watching this garden. The Lord said he keepeth it every night. He watcheth and keepeth it. Right in the book of Isaiah. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 27. In that day, sing unto her a vineyard of red wine. I, the Lord, do keep it. I will water it every morning. So, like every moment, lest any hurt it, I will keep it night and day. Who's looking at you right now, man? And it ain't Santa Claus. Who's watching you argue with your wife, hate your husband, be slothful, make excuses? Because when it's all said and done, when that last pomegranate budded, when that last lily came in perfection, when that last nut came into the garden, when that last chief spice hit throughout the four corners of the earth, it's a wrap. It says, or ever I was aware, my soul made me like the chariots of Aminadab. Salakia for the pronunciation, right? It says, return, return, O Shulamite. Right now, this is personified as Solomon's woman, right? But the Shulamite is spiritually representing the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. It says, return, return, that we may look upon thee, right? What shall we see in the Shulamite? It's telling you it's the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. What should we see in this woman? As it were the company of two armies. Now we know the armies are likened unto what? Terrible armies with banners. It's likened unto that beautiful woman. That woman is personified as the Shulamite, which is personified as two armies. Now we know the armies, again, it's going back to the elect. It's talking about the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, huh? Now, out of all of this, I really wanted to just harp on the queens, right? Which are these nations, and spiritual wickedness in high places, and how they're going to bow down, and really understand and know and proclaim that we are the children of God, that there are queens and, chariots and different thrones and things set on high places and concubines. But the Spirit, had me to read this whole thing. But let me get this closing precept. Let's go to the mighty book of Revelation. Chapter 3 and verse. I'm going to start at 1. And unto the church, like an angel of the church of Sardis is right. These things saith he that's the seven spirits of God and the seven stars. Right? I know thy works, that thou hast a name, that thou livest and art dead. That's spiritual, man. Right? Don't be the brother that has a good name in something, or that sister that has a good name in something, but you're truly not fulfilling and living up to what people look at you as. There's nothing worse than you putting on a mask. You might as well go back to the Christian church, man. We used to Sister Jackson. She was always polite, always on fire, always stomping her feet. But in the middle of the week, she's eating pork. She's doing God knows what. Her house is out of order. Don't have a name of something, but you're not living up to something. Because at the end of the day, the Lord is going to visit you like a thief in the night. It says, be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die, for I have not found thy works perfect before Yahweh. Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come in thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. So that's really, diving into being diligent in your life right now. Nobody knows how long we're going to have on this earth, man. A sickness, a plague, a disease could hit you, right? The Lord could take your spirit. It could just be your time. You could fall asleep. It could take you away from the evil to come, right? You could fall out this truth. It's 1,000 things that could happen. Just pick one. Let your imagination go into a daydream and let your imagination run wild and all the devices that could happen to you tonight, man. And see if fear don't creep into your bones and cleave unto your flesh and drive you to try your hardest to get what you need done, man. And brothers know what they need done. If your house was falling apart, you would make haste. Your tabernacle, your house, spiritually, right, is you. And you have to make sure that you're diligently repairing it, repentant, watching, right, that the Lord don't visit you like a thief and sift you out. But with that, man, Lord willing, this was edifying. I would dive more, like I said, if you have time will propel me to really go too in depth, right, into all of these bills being passed and the history. I just want to pull up a brief, synopsis of what was going on, how they came into these parts, how they were set up, right? Chiefly, again, around the 16th century, all the way out to the time we live in now, how they grew into businesses, throughout all the earth with their power. The Lord willing, this was edifying. I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Ba'ashima Mashiach, Shalom.